Thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. This is one of those special years. Now, every year that we get to spend time together is special, but this year is extra special. And I do want to thank you all for your comments, your listening, your watching. I rely on your feedback to make these better. I am honored and humbled by your support. Now, today, the 20th of March, my friends, is, of course, the first day of spring. Yay! It is the spring equinox. Equinox is derived from two Latin words, equus, which is equal, and nox, which is night. And so it tells us there is about the same amount of day as night. And we have two of them in a year, this one and the one in September. The fact they represent balance and choice is a topic for another day. And friends, they mark the two most important times in the Hebrew calendar. The one in September, of course, represents what we now call Rosh Hashanah. And this one of March is what I referred to last week as the beginning of the year, the first of the 12 days of creation, the first day of spring, and the countdown to the holiest day in the Torah, Passover. And the reason this one is so special is because this year it does mark all those things. Quite often, due to the lunar cycle, the dates just don't all line up so nicely. This year, the stars have aligned, and we have the spring equinox as the first day of the Hebrew calendar. So happy Biblical New Year, my friends. For many, this is the true New Year's. As it says in Exodus 12:1, this month shall be to you the head of the months. To you it shall be the first of the months of the year. And that sometimes makes Rosh Hashanah confusing for people, but that's another story, and that is actually something you may read about on Passover. Now, last week we learned the tabernacle was commemorated on this day. So take a moment and do that. And we do it in our hearts, my friends. So just give a little thanks that you get to carry such a fantastic and holy place with you for you to go to whenever you want, whenever you need. No one can take away what we carry in our hearts. Celebrate the new year. Celebrate the tabernacle. Celebrate spring. Life comes back. The long winter hopefully is over, although they are talking about snow on the first day of spring. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And I say it's all right. Now, today also marks Nowruz, the Persian New Year, a holy day for the Zoroastrians, considered one of the oldest of the monotheistic religions. And we saw that Esther's husband was a Zoroastrian. And for all you members of the Baha'i faith, Happy New Year. And a special birthday greeting goes out to Sharon. I hope you have a birthday to remember. I'll remember you when I've forgotten all the rest. You to me were true. You to me were the best. The first day of the year in the first year of creation would have been what we refer to as the Big Bang, and what the ancients and then the Kabbalists referred to as the lightning bolt of creation. And so, my friends, mystical Judaism teaches us that each of the next 12 days, a day for each month, represents the year ahead, in which we can create the world and the year we want to have. You are an artist looking at a blank canvas. You are free to imprint your will on the universe. Use it wisely. Do you want to fight? Do you want to be angry, sad, hateful, fearful? What kind of year do you want to have? Well then, imprint a sense of security, goodwill, love, creativity, harmonious relationships, time for family, friendship, knowledge, travel, hopes, dreams, and wishes on these 12 days, and have the year and the life that you want. You deserve it. If you are in the slightest way dissatisfied with your life, if you have looked at the mirror of self and did not love what you glimpsed, you are invited to use these 12 days to change it. And friends, it is an annual gift. How cool is that? As Major Tom sang, changes. Turn and face the strange changes. Don't want to be a richer man. Just going to have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. Well, we have turned a page, and we're beginning a new book, the Book of Vayikra, the Book of Leviticus, the Book of Priestly Rules. You will see every manner of offering described, and you'll also see the process of priestly ordination unfold. Now, as we talked about before, my friends, the names of the 5 books of Moses are different in Hebrew than in English. The Hebrew follows the first word of the book and section, while the English follows the theme. This book only hints at the list of rules coming, while the English name, Leviticus, tells us it is focused on the priestly rules, the Levite tribe, and if the people could read, there would have been signs everywhere. Do not enter, do not sin, do not err, atone, forgive. The new formula, and the Lord called to Moses, takes effect. And friends, this phrase introduces most things in this book, including just about all the rules and regulations. This parsha marks the beginning of the solidification, the formation of a nation and an identity. The law is a significant study in itself, but it takes on a very special role here because this book is concerned with the place the laws take in forming a nation. And as such, they're not just listed, but they are woven into the narration between God and Moses. The story is no longer about Moses. It is now about the laws. And there's never a question about getting to know God. It is a given. God is known to all. Now, on his conquest of Turkey, Julius Caesar is quoted as having said, "Veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered." And we all learned that as kids. Now, for these people at the mountain of God, they can all say, "Nos venit, audivimus, nos testis." We came, we heard, we witnessed. Never before and never again would a multitude be witness to God. The great epiphany behind us, yet it will be presented again to a new generation as if they were there. And so we are camped at the foot of God's mountain. Vayikra, and he called. Now, unlike Genesis and Exodus, the entire book of Leviticus is set in one place, at the foot of Mount Sinai. In Exodus, the universe, the land, waters, and sky are in disarray. Following that turmoil, Leviticus is concerned with orderliness and arrangement. The story stops being about Moses. And even though the laws are conveyed through him, the book is about the laws themselves and their revelation to the people. The only stories are about Aaron and his sons. What is more, Leviticus does not develop personalities. We get to know nothing about anybody in this book. It is about institutions, not individuals. Leviticus ultimately teaches that there is a way to behave in morality, in ethics, and more importantly, in ritual. Now, thankfully for many, Leviticus is the shortest of the 5 books that make up the Torah, and it sits squarely in the middle. And it's often quite unsettling to modern readers. It lies between the completion of the tabernacle after the Sinai Epiphany in Exodus and the wilderness wanderings to come in Numbers. And so this long moment of stasis deals with matters of ritual. Now, odder still, most of the laws are focused on topics that may seem less than urgent to audiences not part of the ancient world in which they were framed. The central concern of the book is the conduct of the cult, with elaborate stipulation of how the sacrificial animals are to be butchered, what parts of them are to be burned on the altar, and how their blood is to be ritually sprinkled or daubed on various extremities of the celebrant. Purification is a paramount consideration in all of this. And the legislation lays out elaborate procedures for cleansing both persons and substances of a rich variety of impurities. The emphasis on the regimen of sacrifices must have had a kind of historical expressiveness and even an ideological urgency for them. The temple, with all its splendid furnishings and accoutrements, had been destroyed by the Babylonians, and much of the Judean population had been driven into exile, like now. And so these intricate legal instructions about ritual conduct within the sacred space of the tabernacle were a means of reinstating the vanished temple as a fact of the imagination and as a blueprint for future restoration. And friends, this message was strongly carried forward into post-biblical Judaism. In fact, 2 whole tractates of the Talmud based on Leviticus would be devoted to the laws of the cult and would remain the object of intensive study, such that at least by the later Middle Ages, small Jewish boys were introduced to the Torah not through the great story of creation and the incredible tales of the patriarchs in Genesis, but through Leviticus. In Rashi's formulation of the academic slogan, "Let the pure ones come and study laws of purity." Boring. Friends, this is where you begin to lose the audience. Do not get lost in the rituals described in this book. View it instead as a giant metaphor or allegory. Reality is conceived as an elaborate system of correspondences. Correspondences between Sinai and the cosmos on the one hand, and the tabernacle on the other. And between all three of these and the body segments of the sacrificial animals. And please note, there is a single verb that focuses the major theme of Leviticus: divides. In Hebrew, it is hivdil. Now that, my friends, is the verb from the beginning of the story of creation. And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God made the vault, and divided the water beneath the vault from the water above the vault. In this vision of cosmogony, the condition before the world was formed was a chaotic interplay of contrasting elements, confusion and waste. Now, what enables existence and provides a framework for the development of human nature and of human civilization is this process of separation, of division and insulation, light from darkness, day from night, the upper waters from the lower waters, and dry land from the lower waters. That same process is repeated manifestly in the ritual, sexual, and dietary laws of Leviticus. Now, just as one has to set apart permissible sexual partners from forbidden ones, mothers, aunts, sisters, daughters, and every kind of animal, one must set apart what may be eaten in the great breeding of living creatures from what may not be eaten. Reptiles, amphibians, birds of prey, pigs, bats, cats, rats. In its acceptance of these categorical divisions, Israel sets itself apart from other peoples and becomes holy like God, dividing, setting apart, erecting barriers to access. These are the notions that permeate all the regulations here about the tabernacle, the Mishkan, God's terrestrial dwelling place. We are constantly reminded that ordinary Israelites are to keep their distance from the sacred space of the sanctuary, into which no unauthorized person may come forward, which in these contexts has the same sense of encroach upon. Even the priest must follow a careful regimen of dress and cleansing and abstention from alcohol before entering the sanctuary. And the inner sanctum, conceived as the material point of linkage, the nexus between God and the world, can be entered only by the high priest on the Day of Atonement after meticulous ritual preparation. And friends, you will notice the chief instruments for protecting the separation of the spheres of creation are the everyday items of fire, blood, oil, water. And these four substances come from four different realms of existence. You've already seen that God reveals his commandments in an awesome pyrotechnic display. He manifests his presence before the people in a pillar of fire by night and cloud by day. He is appropriately worshipped through burnt offerings, consumed by fire, and by other sacrifices that are turned to smoke. Fire is linked with the divine. Blood, as Leviticus emphatically reminds us, is the very life, nephesh, of the living animal. As such, it must not be consumed as food. But in ritual procedure, it has a cleansing virtue and is to be sprinkled, cast, or smeared in designated ways during the sanctuary rite in order to effect purgation. Blood, the life force, courses through the veins of living creatures, animal and human. Oil, specifically olive oil, a product of agriculture of the land, has by contrast an association with the everyday, with the social and political realms of ancient culture. A traveler, after washing away the dust of the road, would often rub himself with oil. And of course, oil is the substance of dedication, poured on the head for kings as well as for priests. It is chiefly the celebratory function of oil that is carried over into its various uses in the cult. And of course, the effectiveness of water as a purifying agent is universal. And water recalls the primordial realm that must be set apart from dry land so that the world may come into existence. This is what you will see in this book. This book is about sacrifice. And it has been 2,000 years since the Second Jerusalem Temple was destroyed and sacrifices ended in Judaism. In addition, the two largest religions, Christianity and Islam, also do not perform sacrifice. And so it has been so long since we have seen or done this that most people are unclear about what sacrifice was. Now, frequently people imagine that it meant that biblical men regularly destroyed much of their livestock for no reason. This is wrong. You see, the purpose of sacrifice, and therefore so much of this book, was to recognize that an animal's life was sacred. Most sacrificed animals are eaten by the person who brings the animal to the altar. Now, there's also a second group of sacrifices which involve the ritual slaughter of an animal that is not for consumption by that person. Instead, this meat is eaten by the priests or is entirely burnt. This book presents a system that provides rules for guilt, and it also provides a mechanism for penance and forgiveness. Sacrifice relates to guilt and expiation, the two key concepts which arise at Yom Kippur. And the system of guilt provides the mechanism for forgiveness, the most important gift of all, my friends. Yet still people hold on to their guilt for years, when they could have exercised the forgiveness mechanism. Sacrifice is the only mechanism for forgiveness in the Book of Leviticus. The words repentance, mercy, grace, and kindness do not exist. It is a book of rules, of laws, not of emotion. The entire book is a book of rules regarding sacrifice. But friends, it's not just cut and dried. People do make mistakes. Humans make mistakes, and mistakes still require atonement. People feel guilty when they do harm, even if they meant no harm. And so sacrifice provides a mechanism for purging the guilt and putting the act in the past. Now, in the absence of sacrifice, other means of atonement have risen in importance. Notably, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, has become the most sacred and widely observed holy day, whereas in the Torah, as I've said, Passover stands out as the first and foremost of the holy days. And it, my friends, is but 2 weeks away. Now, this book of the Torah was written with sacrifice in mind, something that, since it does not exist anymore, and so much of what you are going to read will have so much less meaning. Now, don't get lost in it. Don't worry about knowing how to conduct a proper sacrifice. I'm sure your parents have taught you that already. After all, they sacrificed everything for you. Do not worry either if you get bored. This is the most we will talk about sacrifice for weeks to come. Think instead of the metaphor. Now, friends, honor your tabernacle, your dwelling place of God. Honor the first of the year. Honor the spring. It is birth. It is newness. It is opportunity. Create the life you want to have. Get ready for the festival of flatbread. Free yourself from fear. Love y'all. Live free. Be free and honor your freedom. Be well. Be happy. Be blessed. Share and honor the light and all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, an end to terror and hatred. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together. We celebrate each other. We love each other. And as we were told in 1969 by Peter Townsend, what many believe was the first rock opera, I'm free. I'm free, and freedom tastes of reality. I'm free, and I'm waiting for you to follow me. Follow your freedom, my friends. Thank you all. Love you. See you next time. Have a fantastic year. Bless you. Shabbat Shalom.